The Mariners have made some news recently, including a comment by Jarred Kelenic, as well as the Hot Stove League. We're also going to talk about some of the minor league and major league signings that the Mariners have made on the relief pitcher front, as well as the international draft class that is now coming through. And we're going to wrap it all up with some spring training key dates for you. Welcome to episode 53 of the Hit It Here podcast, part of the Bleav Network, the Arthur Rhodes episode of the podcast, Joe. How about that?
Dude, you said that we weren't doing this. You said we were only going to do 52 and give you some obscure guy. And here we are doing Arthur Rowe. I get it, all right? He's your guy. That's your guy from way back when. Arthur, I get it, okay? No more after this. I'm doing well on the Arthur Rhodes episode. And, you know, my golden child, my favorite Mariner for the last couple of years is making some headlines today in the Twitter sphere. Jarred Kelenic was on Foul Terrritory, and you know, as that show does, is asking the questions that maybe certain other podcasts or media outlets can't really ask. And Eric Kratz, I think it was Eric Kratz that was interviewing him, right?
I mean, I know Todd Frazier was a part of it. I don't know if it was Kratz for that specific part, but I know Todd Frazier played a part in that podcast. Okay.
Continue. My apologies if I got the name wrong, but just, you know, comments about the 54% stuff and Jerry making the prime Babe Ruth isn't going to fix the team. There's a multitude of issues, and Jarred was calling that a distraction for the team within the season. And, you know, people then started to point out, well, after Jerry made that comment, the team started playing better. And then also, you know, Jarred calling, the pot calling the kettle black. It's, you know, it's a bit wishy-washy with how I think the interview went overall and just the general reception. You know, when the Mariners and the Braves play, if they do play in T-Mobile next year, I would bet that Jarred is not receiving a standing ovation. And if I were to place a bet on it, it'd be on BetOnline. BetOnline is one of our favorite partners to work with as part of the Bleav Network. When you head to BetOnline and use promo code Bleav, on your first deposit, you're going to get a 50% off welcome bonus. The NFL playoffs are right around the corner, and there's no strings attached for the Seattle sports fans, unless for some reason you're an out-of-Seattle sports fan for football, because unfortunately, the Seahawks did get eliminated. But no strings attached means you can place bets wherever you feel like without your emotions getting too heavily involved. And say you're not an NFL bettor, maybe you like the NBA more. Obviously, BetOnline has you covered there. And going even further down the line, they've got the NHL. They've got every major sport that you guys can think of. So head to BetOnline to place those bets today. They've got you covered with all the up-to-the-second odds, news, and scores. And they've got additional odds, lines, and trends. And that info is available to you on both desktop and mobile. So you can access the world's best wagering info anytime, anywhere, any place. Remember, that's code BLEAV for your 50% off welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, it's where the game starts. So Colton, what do you make of Jarred and this? Is there anything to this, or is it just kind of, we're going to let it go by?
Yeah, no, there's nothing to it. There's absolutely nothing to it. Jarred's right. Yes, he was a distraction during the season, kicking the cooler and whatnot and that whole thing. But there's nothing to this. Like, I mean, it is what it is. He's not wrong. Like, I mean, yes, the comments we've all talked about ad nauseum, the problems with the comments that Dipoto has made. And that 54% comment, God, we know we hear it every day in our friggin' comment section. Oh, 54%. So it's like, he's right when he says that it was a distraction for the team. All these things kind of compiling on top of each other. Did it lead to distractions in the clubhouse when the guys were trying to focus on the games? I'm not sure, because the team started off really slowly in 2023, but played really good for the second half of the year. So I don't know. I don't necessarily know. And obviously the 54% comment was after the season, but I guess that maybe that's the taste that guys get in their mouths for the offseason because of that comment. And I think that, you know, maybe free agents are looking at Seattle and being like, oh, well, if the president of baseball operations says stuff like that, I don't know if I really want to go there. We'll never know. We'll never know if that's actually what's going on. Instead of just focusing on baseball, we're hearing all these excuses and whatnot, blah, blah, blah. It's a big old thing of nothing. That's all it is.
I really just want the season to start, so that way we have, I don't want to say like actual things to talk about more so, but things that are more akin to what we enjoy about the sport of baseball. And if you guys, like, there's nothing wrong with enjoying free agency trades and, like, I don't want to say like the drama with things, but this is not our bread and butter. This is not what we necessarily root for the Mariners for, is seeing, dirty laundry, or maybe not even dirty laundry, but kind of being aired out in interviews and whatnot. So that's why we turned our attention to the Hot Stove Show. Seattle Sports 710 did a, what was it, like 2-hour radio segment interview thing with a bunch of different guests. And Cal was on there. Brant Brown, the new offensive coordinator, was on there. What?
I just realized I have a problem.
Yeah?
Back in the day, I don't know if any of you guys remember this, but this is probably 2015-ish era.
Uh-huh.
They would have a hot stove episode at one of the Mariners team stores, which I'm pretty sure have all shut down, by the way, except for the one in downtown and the one at the stadium. Like, there was one at South Center Mall, there was one at Bellevue Square Mall. I think they're both shut down. I don't know that for sure. But they used to have the Hot Stove Show live there. And it was super cool. You could go meet Rick Riz, and Jerry Dipoto has been there before, and players have been there. And, why don't the Mariners do stuff like that anymore?
This is just going back. It was the video you made last offseason, like the fans deserve better, all centered around like Fan Fest and, getting the fans and the community more involved. It's not a bad shout, make another live iteration of this where you get good interviews in person. You get to see personnel, all the people and players that you care about. Colton, that's a good problem to have, I would say. But something that the Mariners hopefully won't have a problem with next year is how their offense is going to be constructed due to our new offensive coordinator, Brant Brown. He's not a hitting coach. He's not with Jarred Kelenic. He is a completely different role. He is a strategist, offensive coordinator, taking day-to-day approaches each day, everything. Like, it's going to be something new every day. And there's just I think, as it stands right now, a lot to like about what has been said about Brant Brown leading up through this offseason going to next year, and also what he's just said in general. Like, he's talked about being really excited about working with Julio more. Low-hanging fruit there. Obviously, anybody would be excited to work with Julio, but it's the tone and just the diction that he's using is in an article by Shannon Dreher. Great article. Just like how he's he's a freak athlete, and you could tell that he wants to get after it more so than everybody. It's just, he's going to be a force to watch out for. And with Brant Brown's expertise, because he helped the Marlins, a bunch of their players last year, stocks rose in terms of their hitting prowess, like continue to allow Luis Ariz to almost hit 400. Guys like Jorge Soler had great years. So there's lots to, I think, appreciate about where the coaching direction is going, and just maybe it's not necessarily a complete shift in ideology for the Mariners, but in that article as well, never once mentioned dominate the zone, which is something that they've tried to do, and then Teo and Gino came along and kind of put that in the garbage can. But I don't know, Colton, do you have any, I guess, extra thoughts about Brant Brown or things that you're looking forward to with like differences in the coaching staff?
I mean, something needed to change. Like, it's plain and simple. The Mariners' offense was bad last year. I mean, we saw Julio. I mean, Julio was an MVP 5 last year, but let's be honest, if you take out the month of August, which obviously you can't do, but Julio was pretty mediocre. Like, if I'm being honest with you, like, you get him up in the 9th inning, you know that he's not coming in clutch. It's not happening. And, like, he was swinging through a lot of pitches. We talked about it before the podcast. He was trying to play hero ball. Hopefully, and we've heard a lot of good things about Brant Brown, from whether it be Luke Raley, who used to be with Brant Brown. Obviously, we saw the stuff with Jorge Soler and people, saying that the Mariners, maybe this is their ploy to try to get him. I don't really know. I mean, an offensive coordinator, you'll never know what they can do for a team until the product is out there for 60, 70 plus games. You can actually see the processes change, because realistically, I mean, you think about it, the Marlins had hired Barry Bonds. It's like, okay, like, cool, but he wasn't good. Like, he was there for like a season or two. Think about when the Mariners had Edgar as a hitting coach. Everyone says, oh, they need to blah 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 bring Edgar back. The Mariners' offense wasn't very good when they had Edgar either. It's about the personnel that's on the field. So I don't know if Brant Brown is going to be a guy who's going to be like the Perry Hill of the offense. Like, obviously Perry, he's the Gold Glove. He makes the Gold Gloves. He turns players into the best versions of themselves defensively. I don't know if that's going to be Brant Brown on the offensive side of things, but like I said, something had to change, and with how bad the offense was, I mean, there was really no way to go but up in 2024.
I think the biggest change that I've kind of gathered from just listening to interviews, reading some of the like columns written about him, is there's a bigger focus on the diverse pool of hitters and different profiles that they will play and roles that they'll play in each like game and how that can change with who's on the mound or what the situation is up to bat. And you're talking about Julio playing hero ball. If it's, the worst fear comes to fruition that he is a warm weather player, that he can't hit when it gets cold, at the beginning of the year in Seattle. And maybe it's more so that he needs just to change his approach. Maybe he's not bailing out for power. He's going to start trying to, he does a great job of hitting the ball the other way, but he's not going to be just swinging out of his ass every single time he has the opportunity to. Maybe his ideology about like the situation can change, and maybe Brant Brown can play a big part of that and allow that slow start to not have to, be as big of a worry, and he can continue to string together bigger successes throughout the beginning of the year and have that sustain through the entire year.
You said ass in the last like 4 podcasts in a row.
I like ass, bro. Speaking of ass, there was a question posed to Cal Raleigh from Aaron Goldsmith on that radio show, talking about, how successful Cal was in 2023, just had a great year overall. And before even talking about himself, talking about any success that he had, he mentioned that, they had work to do. And you're talking about, the offense wasn't as good. There's things to improve on. Obviously, the team didn't make the playoffs. They know that they had bigger aspirations than they met in 2023. The fact that Cal, when he's being lobbed a meatball just to brag about himself for a second, he's still a team-first guy, that is something that I think will resonate with all the players. Not to say that that's not already the case with a lot of the guys in the clubhouse and how they're, a team, brotherhood, whatever. It's just seeing it and hearing it again, because I think the same thing happened with Cal earlier in the year when he was on Foul Terrritory. It's just like he has continued that, I want to say it's like PR Cal, but he's had good radio spots where he's still putting the team first. We all already knew, just reinforcing that.
So we've talked way too much, Joe, about radio shows. We're our own damn show, all right? So now, let's get into some real news. The Mariners have made a couple of signings, including a 40-man roster guy. Let's first talk about Austin Voth, a Seattle, Washington-ish native, right? Where was he from?
Redmond, I think.
Redmond, Kirkland, somewhere up there. So yeah, I mean, Austin Voth, he's a swing guy for the Mariners. The Mariners signed him for I think 1.25 million or something along those lines.
Yep.
Probably factors in somewhere in AAA, I would assume, to start the year, unless, some other things happen. We'll get to that in just a little bit. But what do you think about Austin Voth?
Well, that 40-man spot is just, I think, a tough one to kind of nail down of where he's going to start, because he doesn't have any options, I don't think. And so to me, it feels like the Trevor Gott signing from last year of a guy that does not get signed a minor league deal with his invite to spring training. He is getting a major league deal, 1 year, 1.25 million. I think he's going to be a factor in the bullpen on opening day, should he not get DFA'd, right? Wasn't great last year for Baltimore. 80 ERA plus over 34 2/3 innings pitched, a 5.19 standard ERA. So not great, but in 2022, I think it's, where the big value comes in. A 129 ERA plus across 83 innings, a regular 3.04 ERA. And Colton, you mentioned he's a swing man. The Mariners are, according to Shannon Dreher, going to have him be stretched out as a starter and then make him shorten up as the season goes on into a relief role. So seems like we kind of already have guys like that on the roster. One that's getting paid a lot more money than 1.25 million. And, if Austin Voth can be similar to what we were trying to get out of Anthony DeSclafani for, a fraction of the cost, I won't say worried, because worried's not the right word, but I'm intrigued about how the roster will come together. I think with if DeSclafani's still with the team, if Austin Voth does make the final cut, kind of a thing, like the final 26-man every day, like opening day roster, because there's only so many pitchers you can carry, and you've got the starting 5 locked in, and you've got probably 4 relievers guaranteed with Munoz, Brash, Spire, Topa. So that leaves you with 4 relievers. Like there's a lot of options for the Mariners here, but I don't know. Austin Voth, nice-ish. It's just where we see it go from here. He could be traded in the middle of the season like Trevor Gott did for, nothing. Or we could see a bigger move coming.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I wouldn't be shocked to see DeSclafani get moved. I mean, in my opinion, it'd just be a salary dump. Like, I don't know what you're going to get for Anthony DeSclafani. You might, depending on how the pitching market continues to evolve over the next month or so. Maybe there's something there. But overall he's making like 12 million or something along those lines, which is a lot of dough. And if you're the Mariners, that's a lot of dough that you would rather not be spending right now with your current financial constraints. And if Austin Voth can even be similar to the value that you can get out of DeSclafani, then I think that maybe you look to trade DeSclafani in some way, shape, or form. Maybe you find someone to take on even half his contract and you pay the other half, whatever. It's less money than you were paying him before. So if you're the Mariners, I think that is probably the biggest or the next move you try to make here. DeSclafani, I think, is a fine number 5 somewhere. And I think that you could find a trade partner for him. You're just not going to get a lot of value back, especially if you have them take on the whole contract, whoever you're trading with. So Austin Voth, if he fills that role, then sure, yeah, trade DeSclafani and have Austin Voth be that guy. But I do think DeSclafani does have higher upside than Voth. But when you're talking $11 million more, I don't know if I care. So DeSclafani, trading DeSclafani might be the next move for the Mariners if they're looking to shed some payroll before making some other signing or acquiring some other bat. It could also be another contract for contract swap, whether that be, kind of similar to what the Mariners did with Robbie Ray, where they got DeSclafani and Haniger in that deal. It was a bad contract for a couple bad contracts. So who knows? I mean, there's a lot of moving parts still with just little less than a month left until spring training. But moving on to some of the other guys that the Mariners have signed recently, we can talk about Ty Buttrey is a guy.
Yeah.
But I said Ty Buttrey. What's that? Joey something?
Crable?
Joey Crable? Is that how you say it?
I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce it, but those are the two other recent additions along with Austin Voth.
Mm-hmm. And I believe Crable still has a option as well. So I would assume he starts the year in AAA, and then if you need him, you can bring him up. And then he can just kind of bust him back and forth if you need to.
Mm-hmm.
Ty Buttrey, I believe he was with the Angels before. I mean, he's been around. He's, whatever. It's depth. It's what the Mariners need. They need depth. And especially if you're filling out the roster down in AAA Tacoma, obviously pitching is hard to come by when it comes to the PCL. So, I mean, filling out as many guys as you can down there for the possibility of A, injuries, and B, if you do decide to trade some guys out of your bullpen, you have serviceable guys to fill in those spots. I mean, you're not lighting the world on fire with Buttrey or with Crable or whoever else they've signed recently, who I can't even think of anymore because I'm 99% sure they probably won't matter. Mm-hmm. But with how good the Mariners pitching lab is, Voth, Crable, Buttrey, other guys they've signed, one of these guys they might hit on. And if they do, that's fantastic for them, and they've shown that they're good at doing it. Do you have any care in the world about what these guys could be?
I mean, there's plenty to care about. Topa and Spire kind of came out of nowhere. Buttrey last appeared in 2020, so it's been a couple years removed from him. But in 2018 and 2019, he had ERA plus of 129 and 116 in pretty sizable innings. There was only 16 in 2018, but across 72 and a third in 2019, he was a very above average reliever
with the Angels.
With the Angels, yes, and suck it, Angels kind of a vibe, but. If he turns into anything, that's great. It's one of those situations where we're paying them, league minimum to potentially come in and be the next Justin Topa. It's just a situation that a Mariners signing of any sort of relief pitcher or whatever, it's typically like keep an eye on it for at least a little bit. Should be no head scratching of like, why did they do this? It's just just wait, because it could turn out to be something. This could also be like the Riley O'Brien that we are pounding the table for to come up from AAA because he's been doing really well. That just never sees the light of day. It's, there's plenty of ins and outs with these relievers. I mean, there's tons for the Mariners to pick from for those final spots like Voth, DeSclafani, Kowar, Vargas, Yovera, Bolton, and then Crable, Snead, Buttrey, Diaz. Like so many names that we may see all of them pitch. We might see 2 of them pitch. Like it's just for the Mariners having as much pitching depth that you can, I don't want to say get your hands on because maybe we're just being greedy. Looking at you passing. Maybe we're just being greedy with our collection of relievers that did not, they're gone to the island of misfit toys for other baseball teams. We're going to make something out of nothing.
And the Mariners did it a lot in 2023 as well. You think about like JP Bukauskas. Again, we saw Topa, Spire. I mean, Trevor Gott came in. There's plenty of guys. Easton McGee was someone who I would have put on that list who came up and started for you, but also was kind of more of a bullpen guy. Chris Clark, I think it was, from the Cubs, Rule 5 guy.
Yeah.
Like, these guys are, more than likely you'll see maybe 1 or 2 of them this year. But, I mean, yes, you're stacking the deck in your favor when the more the merrier. The more you get, Like you're bound to hit on one of them at some point. And you kind of feel it out throughout spring training. You kind of see where these guys are at. And then you decide, okay, do we want to keep this guy on our roster over Preylander, for example? Which probably not. I mean, Preylander definitely has more upside than all of these guys, maybe even combined. And I think that, I would rather have Preylander in that bullpen than Ty Buttrey.
Yeah.
But the Mariners also made some other acquisitions, and that was in the international draft class. And the Mariners made, I think, two in the top 50, right?
2 in the top 50, 3 in the top 100.
Joe, read me some names.
Forgive me for some poor pronunciations here. I'm going to start from the bottom, work our way to the top.
That's why I made you read it.
Yeah, I appreciate that. David Pena, right-handed pitcher from the Dominican Republic. Eliezer Orbay, left-handed pitcher from the Dominican Republic. Zeus Nunez, shortstop from the DR. That's the name.
That's my guy.
That's the name.
My guy.
It's a guy to watch out. If there's any sense of, you have to have a good name to make it into professional sports that some people think is real or not, Zeus Nunez is the guy to watch out for. You've got Manuel Baez, catcher from the DR. Manuel de Cesare. Oh, God, that's a doozy. De Cesare. No idea. Sorry, bro. Outfielder from Venezuela. You've got Yuri Castillo, shortstop from the DR. Anderson Jimenez, a right-handed pitcher from the DR. And then this is where we get into the top 100. Gabriel. And then I pronounced it wrong last time. I was saying Gaunchez. I think it might be Juanchez. I don't know. Catcher from Venezuela. He was, I think, the 78th ranked prospect from the international draft class. We talked about him a bit more in a previous episode of the podcast, just like who they are, what they could be, talking about like Juanchez being like a guy that could fill out to be an everyday backstop, like a guy that has developed well in terms of catching skills and just its overall athleticism. All these guys are super young, super raw, super athletic. That is what the international draft class is, of you getting guys with potentially high ceilings, but pretty low floors. They could turn into nothing. But next guy in the top 50, I think the number 48, Leandro Romero, shortstop from the DR. And then the top guy for the Mariners this year, number 7, I think it was, on Pipeline, Dawel Joseph, another shortstop from the DR.
Let's talk a little bit about the ages of these players, because we're not going to see any of them anytime soon, for what it's worth. So Joseph is 16 years old. What were you guys doing at 16? Joe, what were we doing at 16?
Being a bunch of bums.
Baez is 18. The oldest guy on here is Castillo. He's 19 years old. These are just the guys from the DR that I have pulled up here. Romero is 17 years old, right-handed hitting shortstop, blah, blah, blah. So when you think about it, guys like Julio, for example, when the Mariners signed him back in, 2017 or something like that, you give it 4 or 5 years until you're going to see these guys. So are they going to make immediate impacts? No. But this Mariners farm system is so young that you look ahead into a couple years from now, you're going to start seeing the Cole Youngs coming up and the Emersons coming up, and then the next wave after that. And we've always talked about how, oh great, the Mariners are years away again. We were going to get these waves in 2023, 2024. Oh well, now we have to wait till 2025, 2026. Welcome to baseball. The thing is about these guys is that they are what the Mariners have done by adding guys like for the international draft class and drafting high school guys in the draft this year. You are basically making your farm system and your team as well sustainable for the next 7, 8, 9, 10 years. And you are constantly funneling guys in, because right now the Mariners baseball team, they are a very good team and a lot of their guys are graduated. That's why you see the Mariners farm system rank so low right now, is because a lot of these guys are down in single A or even in the complex league. So by adding guys like these from the international draft class, you were giving yourself the best chance to have a sustainable winner for a 10-year period. A 54% winner.
There you go.
All right. 54%. And I think that you can never sleep on the international draft class. You just can't. I mean, like I said, Julio came from there. We've seen other guys like Frankie Lindor was an international draft guy. Acuna, like the best players in baseball pretty much always come from internationally. Like the best player in baseball is from Japan.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, come on, you can't sleep on these signing periods. And I think that the Mariners are far and away one of the best teams when it comes to convincing some of the top guys to come here. Because every year you hear that the Mariners are signing one of the top 10 guys. Last year it was Celestine, and like Julio, of course. So is Dawel Joseph going to be here next year? No. But should you still be excited about what you see out of him? Absolutely. You should still keep tabs in the back of your mind on guys like Joseph, on Celestine, on Jeter Martinez, etc. Because this is the future of this team.
You talked about Jeter Martinez, and that's a guy that when we signed him, he was like around the 50 range. Same thing with Leandro Romero, and he was not within the Mariners top 30. So if you don't see these guys that get signed enter into the prospect like top 30 rankings, give them some time. Jeter Martinez had a fantastic Dominican Summer League last year and has risen through the Mariners prospect rankings and is in the top 30 now. Leandro Romero is probably not going to crack the top 30, and if he does, he'd probably be at 30. Everybody else on this list, you're just waiting for them to develop. And Double Joseph, he's probably going to be somewhere in the top 10 because that's where Celestine ended up as, the number 2 prospect from last year's draft. He was immediately plugged right into the Mariners top 10. I don't see anything different happening for Joseph, and it's just going to continue to stagger as guys graduate. There's going to be more funneled in, and Lazar Montes was a guy that's international draft class signing. Michael Arroyo is another one that are now in the top 10 or a fringe top 10 that weren't there before. So it's just give them time to develop, and eventually they'll be getting major league invites to spring training, or they'll be in the background like the second what's it called, the secondary site, what is that called, this like the secondary site at spring training where it's like
minor league camp?
Is it just minor league camp? I was gonna say prospect camp, but that didn't sound right.
Same thing.
Yeah,
same thing.
Roughly the same thing. They'll be there eventually, and you guys will be able to see all of the high level prospects that you should be excited about, that Colton's saying you should keep tabs on. And Colton, where might you see some of them this year?
Well, you know what, guys? You might just see them down in Peoria, Arizona at spring training. And we got some key dates announced. Now, for example, last year, Felton Celestine, I was really excited to go down to spring training and hopefully see him. And then he had his hamstring injury. Or no, he had visa issues, right? That's why he couldn't get it. And then he had a hamstring injury later. So he wasn't there until like the day after I left, which was super annoying. I was like, come on. But we have some key dates for you for the Mariners spring training. When it starts, pitchers and catchers, guys, they report on Valentine's Day, which is going to be fantastic because God knows I'll be alone. So it'd be really nice.
The Mariners always got you, buddy.
The Mariners always got me on Valentine's Day, and I'll be feeling all down, but the Mariners got me on Valentine's Day. The first pitchers and catchers workout is the next day on the 15th. Position players report on Monday, the 19th of February. The first full squad workout will be the next day on the 20th. Then on the 24th will be the first game at Camelback Ranch versus the White Sox. That's a Saturday. And another big note here, they do have the spring breakout game, which is the best prospects against another team's best prospects for the Mariners. It'll be against the Padres on the 15th, which is a Friday. I'm going to be at that game. So, hey, if you guys are down in spring training, I'll be there from March 10th through the 16th. So if you guys are down there, make sure to say hello. The spring breakout game, I think, will be one of your best chances to maybe go and see DeWall Joseph. Could you imagine if he's in that game? Obviously, you'll probably see Harry Ford at catcher, but, maybe they have DeWall Joseph playing over there at shortstop or something, Cole Young, Colt Emerson, I'm sure will be there. So maybe he's just on the bench. I don't know. You'll see Tyler Locklear, I'm sure. Gabby Gonzalez, I would assume, would be there. Just all these guys that you're really excited to see if you're Mariners fans playing in the Peoria Sports Complex against the Padres' top prospects. Do you think that that's going to be the coolest game of the entire spring?
I feel like it's got to be. Or, if you're into the prospects, if you're more so just in tune with the major league team, probably not. You're not going to care a whole bunch. But for people that are a bit more attuned to it, yeah, of course, it's going to be a ton of fun. I would be very surprised if any of these international draft signing guys are part of that. I would say like Celestine would take precedence over Joseph in this situation. Maybe Jeter Martinez starts the game. We get all these, young up and coming guys, but there's a lot to be excited about in terms of that spring breakout game and just the Mariners prospects in general. And just, I think, baseball, it's literally a month away. It's like super freaking close. And all I want is just to be able to sit down and watch a game pretty desperately.
Yeah, this time of year is usually when I just go back and watch old games because, it's cold outside, it's raining, everything sucks. Everything sucks, that meme. Thanks, Joe. I'll just go back and watch a game. I could really use one of those right now, And the 14th of February is less than a month away. Would you say it was like 28 days, something like that?
Yeah.
Like we're this close, guys. We are so close. We almost made it through the off season. And if you're planning on going down to spring training in 2024, make sure you check out our spring training guide, which is on the screen right now. Thank you guys so much for watching episode 53 of the Hit It Here podcast, the Dan Altavilla episode presented by Bet Online, and Go Mariners.